Do you feel you're in the dark? Your sun is rising.
Yeah, I've decided I'm just going to go ahead and do it. So, how you doing, girlfriends? Okay, what we're going to talk about today is sex. Sex. Yeah, sex. Taboo subject, right? Taboo totally. You're not supposed to talk about it in public, right? It's on everybody's mind. For God's sakes, let's talk about it already. So, sex. What is the purpose of sex? I mean, like, why have sex? Well, there are two reasons, and we're going to get to the second one later in this message. But the first one is procreation. Pro meaning in favor of, creation. I'm not going to define that word. And obviously what I'm talking about here is the survival of the human race. So that is the absolute number one purpose for having sex. Like I said, we'll get to the second one in a few minutes. Now, sex, is it complicated? Isn't it complicated? Oh my God. I mean, like, we make sex so bloody complicated. Or can it be simple? Yeah, it's going to get simple in a few minutes here, okay? Now, what do we tie sex to? See, we take this wonderful thing called sex and absolutely essential thing called sex for procreation, critical to the survival of the human race, and we tie it to other things like love. We talked last time about love, how complicated or simple that could be. We tie it to obligation. Have you ever been in a situation where you have had sex out of obligation? I have. Right? How about money? You ever have sex for money? Emotions. Let's move on. Sex and emotions. We have positive emotions around sex, like love, intimacy. What about negative emotions around sex? How about guilt? How about anger? You feel something's been taken from you, right? And you feel angry? It happens. Now, where do those emotions come from? And where they come from is they come from expectations that we have about whatever it is we tied the sex to. So if we tied it to love and we have an expectation of love and we did not get that love, we're likely to be angry. Right? Come on now, tell the truth, girls. Right? Same for guys. Same thing. Really. Now, let's make it simple. Okay? All of that was the complex, the complicated stuff, tying sex to all these other things that we do and then all of the emotions that come out of it. Let's make it simple. The act of sex is the act of giving and receiving physical pleasure. That's it. That is it. Anything that you give to another person, my definition, okay? It works. Anything you give to another person that is in the form of physical pleasure to them, you could call that sex. Okay? And anything that you receive, again, in the form of physical pleasure, well, if you want, you could call that sex. Okay? And when you look at everything from caressing someone's hand to, intercourse, everything in between falls within that definition of giving and receiving physical pleasure. Now, of course, an activity is anything that gives we've covered that. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes and we've covered that. Now, Does it have to be another person? No. It could be yourself. The giving and receiving of physical pleasure, period. It didn't say to whom or what. It didn't say anything about relationship, what relationship you have with them. And yes, it could be yourself, of course. So sex can be very simple. And if we remove the expectations and the connections that we have given, the connections that we've taken and binded to sex, if we remove those, well then the negative emotions, the painful emotions that often come up, look, if it doesn't apply to you, that's wonderful. If you don't have those negative emotions and you have what I call positive sex, then that's fantastic. I just want you to know that there are many people in this world, many women in this world, who don't, who the concept of sex brings up pain, emotional pain, and there's no need for that. And when that pain is gone, when that emotional pain is removed, you're free to choose. You can choose what you want at the moment, at the time, in your life in general. You will be able to choose without being driven by an emotional pain.